It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Well, for many of us, the latter was certainly true, and you don't have to have read Dickens to conjure up the image of what a winter of despair looks like. But while the Covid-19 pandemic will go down as possibly the toughest period to live through for a generation, as far as NFTs are concerned, these were the boom years. I'm Forkast's Joel Flynn, and this is Moments in NFT History. Well, perhaps more accurately, you might say this episode is a moment in history for everything and everyone. Really, though, the pandemic may have been the game changer for NFTs. So let's take a look at why and dial the clock back all the way to the start of 2020. That was when COVID-19 was still a little-known disease that many probably considered to be China's problem.
In central China, a man has died following an outbreak of an unknown pneumonia-like virus.
Now, the total effect of COVID-19 on the world doesn't need to be documented here, except to say that countless people were put out of work and countries everywhere locked themselves down to try and contain a disease that would ultimately end up killing millions. In the US alone, according to the NGO, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, tens of millions were made jobless in the early months of the pandemic, with countless more likely across the rest of the world. Some were compensated, some were not, and some turned to crypto and to blockchain. Meanwhile, nearly 10% of Americans were putting some of their $1.5 trillion worth of stimulus checks into NFTs. And with boredom also taking hold of the lives of people everywhere, it wasn't just banana bread that people were turning to. By August, multinational banks like Singapore's DBS were talking about a pandemic-led acceleration of adoption for digital assets, and crypto prices were soaring. Bitcoin investors in the US alone notched up $4 billion worth of gains, while Ethereum prices jumped substantially as well, up from $134 at the start of January to over $600 by the end of the year. But that was nothing compared to the soaring rate of appreciation in 2021, as a surge in global liquidity drove gains for risk assets everywhere, boosting Ether to an all-time high of $4,865 by November. Some have suggested that the NFT market had no effect on the price of Ethereum, but huge jumps in gas prices by the summer of 2020 were demonstrating the demand coming from dApps. Cheap money was also driving speculation in NFTs, and the art market saw a lot of it. After Christie's first NFT auction of Beeple's Everydays, the first 5,000 days, Lend It FinTech News started talking about an explosion in the global hype of the tokens.
I'm going to Disney World!
It claimed investment in the NFT art market had jumped from $31 million to $755 million during COVID, saving the industry from an otherwise potentially catastrophic series of effects. Other industries were also catching on to the new potential revenue streams offered to them by NFTs, and individuals were looking at new ways to exploit it. People like Harold Hughes pivoted from sectors hit hardest by the pandemic, like live events, into the NFT space. His company Bandwagon Fan Club took the idea of NBA Top Shot, videos of sporting moments, and tried to apply it to user-generated content from live events, allowing fans to mint memories and moments. In other words, virtual experience. The bottom line of what all this means is that for individuals, businesses, and entire industries, NFTs were a lifesaver during the pandemic. And don't take our word for it either. Academics studying markets have already been saying the same thing. Finance professors David Y. Aharon from Israel and Ender Demir at the University of Reykjavik claimed in a paper published in October 2021 that, during the pandemic, NFTs acted as clear recipients of risk, much like other safe haven assets such as gold and the US dollar. It wasn't all good news though, with others documenting that DeFi and NFTs bubbles are less recurrent but have higher magnitudes than cryptocurrencies bubbles and were, quote, exacerbated by COVID-19. This academic literature on the NFT market during COVID-19 is still relatively thin. Very clearly though, when it comes to moments in history for this then nascent industry, the pandemic may have been one of the most significant.